Well, hello everyone. Here you sure right here are talking about awards letters a lot of times, and a lot of times it sure seems that way that when we do speak about an awards letter, that usually means is to where it's a letter that is written based on any offerings, and maybe if it could also be something about adjustments, changes and adjustments to income, right? But a lot of times it sure seems that way that if you were to go ahead and write down an awards letter, like in your own words, and half the time you want to know too, is that okay? Yeah, that whenever it comes to understanding about awards letters, that you have see this right here. This letter is to inform a person about adjustments made due to the changes of, so yeah, it could be, awards letters based on employment income, or maybe if it's benefits, insurance, or whichever it is. And so a lot of times it's like every time you do think about that, any source of awards letter, and 102 that really, you don't have to do anything other than but think. And so it's like if we were to be reading a letter right here, and let's just say that this letter right here was supposed to explain about, the benefits and the changes in benefits, and let's just say if one of them was in regards to maybe if it's a health insurance, or maybe if it's mortgage payments or anything like that, and you're thinking as toward it, okay, yeah, that so you read a letter right here, and it just think as toward it, you go ahead and maybe in just like maybe 5, maybe 7 characters, and I can go ahead and include right here, but talking about it's like for special offers, right? And so it sure seems like that to where that you go ahead and write down a letter in your own words, and just want to know too is that okay? Yeah, you write down the letter in your own words, and want to know just a little bit as to where that okay? Yeah, that whenever it comes to understanding about the words letter. And so half the time you're thinking as to where that okay, that with this awards letter that you see right here, this letter is to inform the person of adjustments made due to the change in the cost of living, and can an award be written to the personnel that and for which the special offer in which are available to them in a special offer. So the way I wrote this right here, like, it really don't really make a whole lot of sense, really. But what I'm just saying right here is if I were to include, a few sentences right here, a few paragraph sentence right here, and just think as toward, okay, yeah, that your best estimate, and maybe your best, if you were to try to assume, what the information is. So a lot of times it's like you talk about for guessing, and so a lot of times it's like, yeah, that so every time like everybody else would say is toward, yeah, if you were to go ahead and guess, guess what guessing the agenda. And so a lot of times it's like you're thinking as to where okay, yeah, they guessing the agenda a lot of times. Really, what does that usually mean when we do speak about agendas a lot of times? And I think as to where, well, really, that what that pretty much means is to where that you're putting together the information, like, yeah, it's kind of like, kind of like a journal, but not really, but still, that if you were to actually write this yourself, if you were to actually write this letter right here, and just think as to where, okay, awards letter, that awards letter, that's information, directly from the offices. I'm like, oh, yeah, for those who sent out the information, those who provided that information for those who need to see it, right? And a lot of times it sure seems that way. That really that. So basically, it's like so if you were to type up a blank document paper, and let's just say that you go ahead and type in on here it is to where your best estimate is fine. To where if you want to go ahead and guess what the answer is and all, but still that but half the time you're thinking is toward okay, yeah, special offers, whenever it comes to special earnings, and really you don't have to do anything. So it sure seems that way that every time we do speak about that, and want to know too is to where that, what does that usually mean, whenever, if somebody were to say, is to where while you're working on something, that really that they just ask you to go ahead and watch what they're trying to show you. And most of the time, it's just like, to me, that's just like watching a TV show. By the way, you're just going to go and just watch, and then just kind of listen up to what somebody's talking about. And so a lot of times it's like, yeah. So like, let's just say that if you were to have a job doing something like that, to where that you don't really have to do anything, but other than just listen to listen to the experts talking about whatever they need to talk about and all that. So, but it seems like to me it's like, with an awards letter. Awards letter is pretty much is to where that you go ahead and look at that, to where it's a letter written to you, based on decisions, and then showing the information about the change of adjustments, and also if it's earnings, or maybe if it's qualifications, or any other sorts of data like that. But it sure seems that way, that every time we do speak about that, and want to know too is to where that do we really want to tell anybody that really you don't have to do anything but think? And so do you really want to put that into like any sort of scenario, right? And so you're thinking as to really, you don't do anything. So I can maybe put on here maybe a comma right there after really, or something like that. You don't have to do anything, something like that, with the comma, another, maybe a quotation or something like that, quotation mark. So every time we do speak about that, and want to know too is that if you were to go ahead and put this into a sentence, right, and want to know too that okay, really, you do nothing but think. So really, that why would we want to think about that is to where it yeah, that whenever you're working on something and maybe talking about something, that really, unless if you're really or any source of conversation or discussions, and let's just say if it's a virtual discussion, then maybe not everybody's really going to know what this is supposed to mean right here. So that's why it sure seems that way, that every time we do think about that, and we're always want to know too that this right here is yeah, I cannot be put into an answer, but really that whenever you do ask the questions, a lot of times, especially on an awards letter, that people are going to say is to where to give me a shorter version of the data right here. And so it's like, yeah, the shorter version, instead of having to read 5 pages. And like everybody else might even say too, that especially if you're tired of looking through all those pages of paperwork and everything, you're going to maybe be asking those questions. And I really don't know really what you call it, but everybody else would say is to where awards letter in your own words, for how it's pronounced, right? But still, but let's just say that if you were to write a letter, something kind of like this, you go ahead and write at least maybe 2 or 3 paragraph sentence right here, but then at the end right here, you would say something like, really, you do nothing but think. So really that I really don't know if I would recommend, like anybody says, toward it, especially if we're talking about the tax documents or something like that. But it sure seems that way, that whenever you do think about that, and you're warned toward, okay, yeah, that what exactly, whenever you read a letter, what exactly is it that this letter is asking you to do? And that one of those letters can also say is to where that we ask you to make copies, number one. So let's just say that on that letter right there, it says to her that, yeah, please make copies. And so it sure seems that way that other than invisible ink, or whichever you want to call it, but it sure seems that way, that every time we do think about that, and want to know too is that, okay, yeah, that you read these letters a lot of times, and you're warned toward, okay, yeah, you got the letter, but then it says right here please make copies. And so every time we do speak about that, and want to know just a little bit too, to where to talk about for please make copies right here. And so it's like, so every time we do think about that, and just like want to know too that, see, I'll go in there, but anyway, but still, that you see right here, talk about for awards letter right here, but still, it sure seems that way that whenever we do speak about for any source of awards letter though, and so half the time it's like you're warned toward it whenever it comes to an awards letter. Please make copies. Please make copies, but think and guessing the agenda, and please make copies. And so if we were to be getting any source of letter, and you're thinking as toward okay, what exactly is it do I do from here? And so it's like every time you do think about that, you get a letter, and 102 is toward okay, yeah, that you go ahead and make a best estimate about what do you think that maybe the letter would maybe say, or if anything, that if you're going to be working on any source of paperwork a lot of times, and you're warned toward it, you go ahead and include really, you do nothing but think. And so a lot of times it's like if you were to say something like that, and let's just say that if you were to be getting into a conversation with somebody, and 102 is toward okay, that information is not yet to be provided right there at the time, not just yet, and so it's like you're going to maybe say is toward okay, really, you do nothing but think. And so do we really recommend maybe telling anybody that, especially if there's a lot of information that you don't know of yet? And most of this, and I know, like everybody else would say too, that especially if we're talking about working on something, and maybe if a lot of information that's required to fill out an application, right? If a lot of information is not available to know yet, for that, for the application, that do you think that maybe you would say something like, really, you do nothing but think? And so it's like, so every time you think about that, and you're 102, that really, if you were to actually type up the letter yourself and kind of get some better sense, better knowledge, if you just want to type up a letter just knowing about it, as to where, you go ahead and guess about what possibly will be going on in the next couple of days or something like that, during the process, as to where if you were to take a guess, and maybe if you were to type up about, what do you think that would be expected, that you would see the next couple of days, and at the time, it sure seems that way. That do most professionals working in the office area there maybe find that convenient, to where that if you know anybody who knows the system very well, and who has the knowledge, and they're gonna say is toward okay, that if you can go ahead and take a guess, and want to know about what exactly is it, and then what do you think the letter is going to say. And so a lot of times it's like, when we speak about awards letters, so a lot of times that's usually a letter that is typed by the personnel, by the person working at the offices, and maybe by somebody that you're working with, and or maybe if it's a letter upon agreement or something like that. But still, it's like every time you do think about that, and I want to know too that if that information was not available to know during the time, then do you think that maybe it would be recommended to go ahead and just type up a letter just to know about your best estimate, and then you go ahead and say that I'm going to go ahead and guess this and guess that, but then at the end, or maybe at the beginning of the sentence, you're going to go and include right here, really, you do nothing but think. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way, that every time we do think about that, and you're warned to where that, okay, what does that mean necessarily? And so it's like, if somebody is actually, what they're asking you to do is to kind of like be, is to like they ask you to just kind of like be on standby by so like let's just say that while you're your modification, I guess that's a lot of times that so it's like uploading documents and also for verification purposes also. So every time you do think about that, and you're always thinking as toward that whenever it comes to taking care of something important, right? And really, you might even think too that is toward that all you really have to do whenever it comes to taking care of receiving a package, or maybe receiving a letter, or maybe receiving a special gift a lot of times. And most of the time that these forms are going to ask you to making sure that everything on the letter is correct, that matches, for what matches, the information what's on the system, right? So half the time you always want to know too that really you do nothing but think. And so half the time it sure seems that way that do we think that maybe that we would want to mention that to like maybe even on a cover letter or any source of letter that we do get, right? And so you may want to know too is toward it if you're getting ready to work on something, maybe if it's tax papers or something like that, and you're thinking as to where okay, what do I do from here? Well, you do nothing, and so it's like so a lot of times it's like every time you do think about that, and you're warned toward it, the only thing that you really are doing right now at the moment is updating and keeping posted. And so most of the time, though, that updating and so it sure seems that way that every time we think about that, and we're warned, we're okay, that please make copies, updating. And so let's just say that if I were to type this letter up myself and actually put in maybe a few math problems right here on the bottom, and 102 is to where all you really have to do is it's information is being modified and in the process and under review, in the review right here. And so that's why it sure seems that way that every time we do think about that. And at 102 that whenever you do guess what to do, something whenever you take a guess a lot of times, but still you type up a letter right here, and at 102 is toward it the ways of how you want to describe an awards letter. And so it's like a lot of ways it's like at the time you're 102 that we just ask you to keep this in mind. And so a lot of times it's like keep in mind. So a lot of times it's like most doctors might even say too that whenever you do while you're working a lot of times, keep that in mind. Keep this in mind. And so every time anybody else would say, speech therapists will probably even say too that awards letters is like keep this in mind. So if you were to keep it in mind, and then if you want to go ahead and maybe like right down here on the bottom, if you want to add in a few other entries also. But still, it's like every time we do think about that, and you're always 102 that okay, that the way it's worded right here that it really don't make a whole lot of sense really. But still, it's like you really just really need to know the situation very well just to be able to understand all of it. But you see right here is that this right here talk about for keep in mind, and really you do nothing but think. And so really that so I guess you would you would use like you would write a letter like this right here, maybe because of the fact that if you were to actually type a letter up at your own time, and let's just say that it's like another way, just for references to where that if you were to type up a letter just because that a lot of the information that was not available to know yet at the moment, and so you go ahead and just take your best guess, and then you go ahead and just say that, okay, yeah, to the best of my knowledge, this is what I'll go ahead and say right here, and that's why that you would include like a letter kind of like this right here, but then also really you do nothing, and so a lot of times it's like, yeah, every time we do speak about that, about jobs though, and want to know too is that, really that if there's going to be, I'm like, yeah, certain jobs that require you to, I'm like, yeah, that have been postponed, or if anything, that they're going to say that, all you really have to do is show up for the meeting and all that, but still, that, I just really want to know here is to where, yeah, really, you do nothing but think, and, so it sure seems that way that, do you think that maybe that you would maybe say something like that, maybe on an invitation or something like that, as to where that, yeah, no tickets are required or something like that, but, you do nothing but just think, just think, and, so it sure seems that way that, everybody else might even say is to where that, yeah, that, even if you're not really playing along, in a game or something like that, you'll want to know too is toward it. Yeah, we need somebody, to roll the dice, and we need somebody to be able to think, and we need somebody to keep all that information, for reference and all. But half the time, it sure seems that way. That yeah, either way, every time you think about it, and it sure seems that way. That are you tired of all that paperwork right there? Are you getting tired of all that paper clutter? Well, you go ahead and just write yourself a few notes right here, and just think as to where to keep in mind. Make a copies, and then really you do nothing but think, and so every time you want to know too that whenever you try to understand the clear understanding of English language or something like that, using the MLA writing, and you're always want to know too is to where that, yeah, well really that whenever you while you really are working, what you really are sometimes are doing is to where you're watching somebody else perform something, and a lot of times it's like everybody else might even say is that do you think for on average that if you're watching somebody work at the same time, and half the time you're always want to know too, yeah, whenever you watch somebody work a lot of times, you're probably thinking as toward okay, yeah, that you don't really have to do anything but just just watch what I'm doing here. And so every time you do think about a letter, right, and a 102 that, even if it is maybe just a few sentences here, or maybe 3 or 4 pages right here full of full of writing right here, talk about our voice, right, and you're always want to know too that, really that whenever you do get those letters, a lot of times, by the time those letters do show up, for sure, then it's going to maybe tell you a few things that maybe you don't quite understand, a few things that you really do understand very well, and so that is why it sure seems that way. That every time we do speak about awards letters, a lot of times in my own words right here, and so that is why it sure seems that way. That every time you do think about that, and you're warned toward okay, yeah, that you do nothing but think. You don't. Yeah, you just watch me do this, and so it's like, yeah. So every time you think about that, and you're warned toward it, okay, you were going to work on something, but then now it's saying that those steps are no longer required, or if anything, it's already been updated. And so most of the time, what I usually see is that yeah, the information that needs to be updated a lot of times. And but still, it's like every time we do speak about a letter, a lot of times in 102, that whenever we do speak about a Word document right here, but it's like every time we do think about that in 102, that yeah, well, the reason why I wrote this letter right here is so that way I can get a good understanding about what is soon to come whenever it comes to the things that I'm going to be working on whenever it comes to paperwork. And with that paperwork, of course, is maybe going to include maybe an important letter, or maybe changes going on with tax papers, or maybe with the school board or something like that. And that is why it sure seems that way, that every time you think about that, and you want to know too that all these papers and everything about what you got, what you got to read about, right? But still, that would everybody feel a little bit more comfortable maybe if you had somebody to read the letter to you, and then also if you put the letter in your own words, and a lot of times everybody else might say is toward it, whenever anybody who does that really, that whenever you put whenever you do put the wording into your own words, though, that it's another way of how you want to share your thoughts with everybody else, right? So it sure seems that way. That does that make you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident whenever you do that? And so it's like, yeah. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, really, you do nothing but think. And so depending on how well everything goes, right, and depending on how well you do, it sure seems that way. That really, that a lot of things about the jobs, though, by the way, a lot of things what I have seen, based on from my experience, though, it's like you want to know too that most of the time, most jobs get more stressful the more work that they give to you. But let's just say that maybe if you don't have to do all the work, and let's just say that maybe just a few of the work required on the assignments, right? But still, it's like every time you think about that, and 102 is toward it. Every time you do speak about work, though, and it's like, yeah, well, you don't have to do anything right now. Just listen, or just you can do you do nothing but think. And so really, unless if you were right there at the in the meeting room, or if you were actually were right there for sure, then maybe you would know just a little bit more of the whole story about what was going on during the time and all that. But every time you do speak about meetings, though, every time we think about meetings, so a lot of times it's like, you're thinking about a lot of things, right? And a lot of times it's like, whenever you do think that, not everybody is able to know what exactly is it that you're thinking about. And so then maybe that's another reason why that maybe people would say is toward it, whenever you put together an awards letter, if you want to be creative, and let's just say that, if you were to go ahead and just write up a letter about what do you think is going to be soon to come, changes made or anything like that, but still, whenever you do think that you're also putting down information based on the fact about, okay, that information was not yet provided during the time. And so maybe that another reason maybe why that you would type up a letter in your own words is mainly because, for that reason, is because a lot of the information was not yet, available to know yet, during the time. And so that's why you go ahead and just make a best estimate, and just go ahead and just write down, everything as best of your knowledge you've written down right here. And but it sure seems that way that every time we do think about that, and at 102 is toward it, go a little bit easier and just say, well, you don't have to do anything right now. You can just keep us posted with what day by day, like, but still that for what how much information is provided, right? But it sure seems that way that if we were to actually, really, you do nothing but think. And so at the time you 102 that so if you were to actually say something like that, even during a meeting, and you're warned toward, okay, what exactly is it that that's supposed to mean right there? And like everybody else would say is toward, yeah, well, you want to know what you should be doing. You could be doing nothing. You can get the job done and do nothing. But still, that but on the other hand, that whenever it comes to whenever it comes to information being reviewed, and documents being reviewed and all that, and you're always thinking as toward it, you have copies, you make copies, and you follow these steps right here, and you're always 102 is that do you think that maybe that you're going to maybe be asking the question toward it, did you do all this for nothing? Like, well, really, just for the training exercise, really. But you don't really want to think about that toward a lot of that hard work that you put into something that you did it for nothing. But still, at the same time, it sure seems that way that you spend maybe 3 days out of a week working on something, and let's just say that you go back into your account and you see that you don't have to do anything now, and it's all been processed and it's all been updated, and so really, how many of us really want a job doing something like that? And people might say, is that really considered working, or if that's really what you call is toward it, in your own key words, is that you go ahead and type up a letter, and let's just say that if you were to take a guess about what's soon to come, to the agenda, and let's just say that within about maybe 3 weeks timing, and let's just say that if everybody else is following up about that, and one or two that for sure that maybe you would have a job. But anyway, the chances of being hired, right? But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good day.